Professor, we got another anonymous question here. This one's from Montana.
I have an abundance of health information bouncing around in my head. I have firsthand experience of what my body responds well to and what acts like poison in my body. I've acquired knowledge and understanding on how and why foods can heal or make me sick. I have access to recipes, a kitchen full of tools, the money to fill my fridge with nutritious healing food. I've even paid for reliable food sensitivity tests. And while my GP has not been overly helpful, my naturopath has been. Together, all of this could have me in great condition, but I'm not. The littlest amount of milkshake, gluten, or alcoholic beverage is so damaging to my inflammation and blood sugar levels that I get discouraged, and so severely symptomatic that I just end up eating more of said food that's essentially poison for my body in some warped attempt to make me feel better. The physical pain is so severe that the lesser of two evils has been for me to use some alcohol in the evening to take the edge off. THC isn't a good option for me, and opioids are something I'll avoid at all cost. CBD doesn't really touch the pain, but I do use it sometimes. Over-the-counter painkillers, they're not strong enough and actually make the inflammation worse later for me. No amount of food prep keeps me disciplined through the whole day, let alone a week. I ask myself and have really considered that maybe this is a self-worth issue, that I have not been able to be more like Joshua, who's fiercely protective of his health. I do seem to have some sugar addiction symptoms. Social pressure also affects me, and I'm not in a position to avoid many of the scenarios that arise. How do I transcend these patterns when all the information in the world doesn't intervene? I ask myself, what is missing if present would make the difference? I keep coming back to discipline being the thing that I need. But if that's the case, how do I grow that? The pain is so severe that it's hard to cope. I use distraction and busyness as a way to force myself not to think about what my body is feeling. I need to find a way out of this experience. I'm spiraling. Being approximately 40 pounds overweight, in pain and sick is literally killing me, and it's a slow, miserable route to travel towards death on.
God, I have so much compassion for you. I resonate with this so much. And I'll just say this to start. Discipline doesn't work.
No.
At least not for what you're trying to do. Discipline for a short period of time might get something done today. You can have discipline to stave off the sugar for this meal. But on a long enough timeline, whether it's social pressures, societal pressures, temptation, impulse, something's going to creep in that's going to kill your discipline. Now, there are at least two types of people in the world, and Bex and I have talked about this on her podcast, How to Love. Bex is more of a moderator. I'm more of an eliminator, right? And our caller here, it sounds like you would benefit more from elimination. You know, one way to look at that is feasting versus fasting. And for me is it's all or nothing for me, right? And so at first that seems really, really restrictive. My diet to the average person is so hyper restrictive. They look at that and they say, oh my God, I could never do that. It must take a lot of discipline. Wrong. It takes no discipline to maintain my really strict autoimmune diet. But the reason that it takes no discipline is because I've simply said, I can't do those other things. It's not restrictive. You know what is restrictive, really? Being in crippling pain 24 hours a day. It's suffering throughout the day is so much more restrictive than, oh, no, I can't eat that processed packaged food. In fact, what I found is that my diet is so restrictive that it's freeing. Because I go to the grocery store, I walk in there, and I say, oh, none of this is food. And why do I say that? Well, it has to do with pain. Pain is a compass that points us toward healing. And I think the caller's problem is actually she hasn't suffered enough pain yet. And I know that sounds insensitive, but it's the opposite. I understand the pain that you're in. And you're 98% of the way there. And having that last 2% of pain, really recognizing that the healing takes place when you're fed up with the pain. This is enough. I'm not willing to touch another drop of alcohol. I'm not willing to touch anything that's inflammatory. Now, for you, it could be different from what is inflammatory for me. Yeah, if I eat a potato, it feels like my ankles are broken because of the autoimmune disease that I have. And so I just don't eat potatoes. It's not an option for me because I know how painful that's going to be. Is that restrictive? No, not nearly as much as the pain is going to be. Waking up in terrible, crippling pain is awful. It's so restrictive that it's not even an option for me. I'm not compelled by the potato. I'm repelled by it because I know how much pain it's going to bring into my life.
What's interesting about your pain is even though you experience the amount of pain after that experience that was sufficient for you to like get it together, it's not the case that you experience that vivid pain in every moment where perhaps the right decision making is required. Right now, you're not in that pain, but you're still going to make the right choice. What's going on there? Herein lies the distinction between knowledge of truth and remembrance of truth. Knowledge of truth is about having the intellectual awareness of fact. Remembrance of truth is about finding ways to maintain a sense of vividness, finding a way to hold on to that truth in spite of the fact that my circumstances and conditions are sometimes going to make it easy for me to forget. C.S. Lewis says, faith is the art of holding on to what you already know to be true in spite of your shifting moods. That's the challenge of life. We know what we need to do to live healthfully, but we often forget it. There was this TV show one time where they played like this Halloween prank where they would walk people through this morgue and through this cemetery. And these would all be people who claim to not believe in ghosts and things like that. And so they walked them through the morgue. They'd be like, are you afraid? Or like, no, like, why would I be afraid? I'm in a morgue. I'm in a cemetery. But then at nighttime, the people had to do this challenge where they had to walk through the morgue and walk through the cemetery. And they played this spooky music and everything when they were doing it. And people were freaking out. And it's like, well, what's going on? Intellectually, these people don't believe in ghosts. And in a sober moment, it's so clear. But when you turn off the lights, when it's dark outside, when you're playing spooky music and you're walking through a morgue and you got all the horror movie associations, what you know to be true kind of feels untrue, right? And your non-belief in ghosts starts to feel a little bit questionable. And that's what life's challenges do to us. Like, we know what that road leads to. We know that we don't want to go down that path, but it feels like maybe it'll feel good this time. And so one thing I'd recommend is when you have those moments of pain, find a way to take some kind of snapshot of it. What works for you as a reminder of the pain you feel when you do the things that are unhealthy for you? Because in those moments of temptation, the voice of temptation is going to show you a very vivid picture of the comfort and pleasure that you feel. And you need a picture of the opposite that is more compelling than that. What is that picture for you?
Did you enjoy this standalone Patreon highlight? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalist Private Podcast, available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists or click the link in the description. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.